March Madness does something better than any other sporting event of the year. It taps into something so emotionally primal into us humans that inspires us and leaves us talking about it for years to come. I am, of course, talking about the underdog Cinderella stories of March Madness. We just love that underdog story. We see it in the movies, and we love to see it in our sports as well, and March Madness produces this like no other. So here's our 5 best Cinderella stories in March Madness history. Look, we got to start with the 2018 Loyola Chicago Ramblers, the team that made us all believers. They were an 11 seed, and they knocked off Miami, Tennessee, Nevada, and Kansas State on their way to the Final Four. And let's just be real, this run would not have been what it was without Sister Jean, their 98-year-old chaplain who became the heart and soul of the team. The Ramblers were super clutch, winning their first 3 games by a combined total of just 4 points. They didn't win it all, but their magical run and Sister Jean's courtside prayers made them a Cinderella for the ages. George Mason in 2006. No one, and I mean no one, had this team going to the Final Four. They were an 11 seed. They took down some serious giants, Michigan State, North Carolina, Wichita State, and then number 1 seed UConn. And their Elite 8 game against UConn was absolute madness. They won in overtime, and they shocked everyone by becoming the first double-digit seed to reach the Final Four in 20 years. Even though they did end up losing to Florida, their run was one of the greatest bracket-busting performances we've ever seen. Dunk City. This one's a little bit personal for me because I went to Georgetown in 2013, Florida Gulf Coast, the Eagles. These guys were not just a Cinderella story, they were a highlight.
Steal at the line. Fielder up high.
They came in as number 15 seed, and they stunned the world and myself by upsetting number 2 Georgetown in the first round. I remember the Georgetown campus the next day. It was deflated. They went on to beat San Diego State in the second round, and they became the first 15 seed ever to make the Sweet 16. And they didn't just win, they kind of embarrassed teams with these insane alley-oops, the fast breaks, the dunks. It kind of made it feel like it was an NBA All-Star game. Their magical run ended in the Sweet 16, but they will be remembered as one of the most highlight-filled Cinderella stories ever. Okay, imagine a team that wasn't even supposed to be in the tournament, and then they made the Final Four. That's exactly what VCU did in 2011. So they started off in the first 4, meaning they had to play an extra game just to get into the bracket. But once they got in, they absolutely tore through it, taking down, once again, Georgetown, Purdue, Florida State, and number 1 seeded Kansas. Their Havoc-style defense, led by Coach Shaka Smart, made them a nightmare for opponents. And they eventually lost in the Final Four, but going from a play-in game to the national semifinals, well, that's Cinderella at its finest. St. Peter's in 2022, a 15 seed going on a 3-game Cinderella run. The Peacocks shocked Kentucky in the first round, then they beat Murray State, then Purdue. That made them the first 15 seed to ever reach the Elite 8. Their end ended there, but their head coach Shaheen Holloway and their fearless attitudes made them one of the most ultimate underdog stories in March Madness history. What do you think? What did we get right? What did we get wrong? Who did we leave off this list? And let's pay attention for another Cinderella story this year.